So, think you've heard Stephen King doing floating before? Think again. It's time to feel uplifted. Here are 19 reasons to read. Elevation. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is where I'm taking you through the works of Stephen King in chronological order and giving you 19 reasons to read all of his books. Click around if you've not been here before, see what else you might find, check out some of my specials as well, like my Stephen King starter kit, and hey, if you like what you see, hit subscribe and then you won't miss anything in the future. And come and say hi on Instagram as well. As a reminder, I'm at Dave Musson. This time around, we're still in 2018 and King's second novel of the year, hold that thought, Elevation. I'm going to give you 19 reasons to read this novel, and I will cluster any spoilers together towards the end of the video and give you warning when they're coming. So if you've not read Elevation yet, you can dip out before I ruin anything for you. Or you can let me ruin it. Totally up to you. I don't rule your life. You do. Anyway, here are 19 reasons to read Elevation. So for the second time in short succession, following on from Gwendy's button box, we're back in the Rock, baby. Yep, this is a Castle Rock story, and it's Castle Rock in 2018. It is our most modern, up-to-date chance to see what life in that little King-created town is like and what's happening. So come on in and let's see what's going down. Now this one is specifically labelled a novel on the front of this book, despite Stephen King himself calling it a novella. It's a novella, okay? It is not a novel. I mean, even holding the book twice only just makes it a novel length. Don't believe those marketing people, folks. Don't believe them at all. So if you need a palate cleanser after the intensity of The Outsider, Elevation is an ideal choice. It's not horror, although the main idea behind the plot would be pretty horrific if it was happening to you. No, this one's more a fable. It's a story that will just let you get drawn in and end up feeling elevated, pun intended. There's also a few political nods in there along the way to make you think while you're being whisked away into this wonderful little story. So as you can see, I have two editions of this, the US one and the UK one, and despite it being a slight little thing, it's definitely worth getting a hold of a physical copy. It's a really nicely laid out book, and there are some cracking little illustrations in there that just kind of elevate it. I'm going to stop doing that now. But you know, the drawings just add something to it. It's definitely worth getting yourself a physical copy if you can. Also, the US cover in particular is gorgeous. So the hook of this one is pretty cool. Our lead character, Scott Carey, discovers that he is losing weight every single day, despite what he eats, what he wears, and despite the fact that he's feeling absolutely fine. Better than ever, in fact. But no, he keeps losing weight, and he soon realizes that at some point he's going to get down to 0 day and he's going to be about to float. How does he deal with all of that? Well, that's the story. There's also a subplot where Scott tries to help his new lesbian neighbours, Deirdre and Missy. I've phrased that weirdly, haven't I? He didn't have old lesbian neighbours. His new neighbours, who are in a relationship with each other and who both identify as women, Deirdre and Missy. Scott's trying to help them out. They've recently opened a restaurant in Castle Rock and it is not doing so well. Not only is this a nice little subplot to the story, it also gives us a sneaky peek into the values and attitudes of your average Castle Rock resident in 2018, which let's say are not particularly progressive. I mean, not that you need to be progressive to acknowledge that people can be in relationships with whoever the fuck they want, but you know what I mean. Deirdre and Missy's restaurant is called Holy for Holy, which is a good enough reason on its own to read this book, and is almost as good a name for a business as another Castle Rock business, You So and So, which was the shop owned by Polly in Needful Things. Seems to be if you want to run a business in Castle Rock, you need to be in the puns game. Maybe I should move there. So Scott's condition is weird, to say the least. As I mentioned, he can eat whatever the hell he wants and he won't put any weight on. And he can wear whatever he wants. And in fact, he can weigh his pockets down with coins and he still doesn't put any weight on. It is odd. So Scott's relationship with Deirdre and Missy, his neighbours, remember, doesn't exactly get off to a good start. Not because Scott is in any way prejudiced, no, because Deirdre and Missy's dogs shit on his lawn. We've got a pretty good staple king character in Scott's doctor here, Dr. Bob Ellis. He's polite, a little confused, very well-meaning, your classic kind of go-to fatherly older figure that King likes to draw on. And he's a really good complement for what else goes on in this story. So the big moment in this story is the Turkey Trot, which is the annual 10K in Castle Rock that takes place the day after Thanksgiving. Deirdre is an experienced runner and she signs up because if she can win it, then she gets to be the person who switches on the town's Christmas lights, and that could be massive in helping save her restaurant. Scott is not an experienced runner, but signs up anyway because he realizes with his condition he's probably going to float his way through that field, and he makes a bet with Deirdre. If he can beat her, she and Missy need to come round to his house for dinner and to talk things over. Deirdre willingly accepts because, as I said, she is an experienced runner. But things start to pan out that give this little fun run far more significance than you might have expected it at the start of the story. So one of the things I enjoyed about this, even though it was a bit silly, was just seeing how Scott's condition affects his day-to-day life. He'd gone years with his legs being used to his normal body weight, so as the pounds keep dropping off, those legs are still as strong as they used to be, so he ends up propelling himself across the room and into ceilings just when he's trying to walk across the room to get a glass of water. Like I say, it sounds a bit silly, but in the context of the story, it works. No spoilers at this point, but the ending will make you feel something. It's definitely worth the journey getting there. Okay, let's jump into spoilers. If you've not read Elevation and you want to dip out at this point, then do float on out of here and I will see you again soon. But otherwise, stick around because I've got a few more reasons you might want to read Elevation. So let's go back to the Turkey Trot. And as you might have guessed, Deirdre doesn't have a simple victory. Scott finds himself floating all his way through towards the front of the field. And then, not long before the end of the race, a sudden downpour occurs and Deirdre falls. Now, Scott could quite easily overtake her and win the race, but he helps her up and insists that she takes the victory. And it's a gesture that is covered extensively in the local press, and it gives Holy for Holies the exposure it needs. And pretty soon the restaurant is fully booked and it has become a success. Woohoo! So that ending, Scott inevitably gets to the point where gravity really doesn't bother him anymore, and he literally floats off into space while being watched from below by his friends. It's poignant and is a really fitting end to a nice little story. So naturally, there are a couple of Easter eggs in this one, given that we're in the Rock. One that you will remember if you've been paying attention is a mention of the destruction of the suicide stairs, which we know all about thanks to reading Gwendy's Button Box. Also, part of the Turkey Trot takes the runners across Bannerman Road, a road named after Castle Rock's favourite police sheriff to ever be ripped to shreds by a rabid dog. It's Cujo, by the way. Oh, and Deirdre's race number? 19, of course. So lastly, this is a lovely little story, but it ain't a novel. Don't believe everything you read on a cover. So there we go, 19 reasons to read Elevation. Do let me know what you think of this one in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, do check out what else I've got on my channel. Have a look at some of my specials as well, like my Ultimate Guide to the Dark Tower. And hey, hit subscribe if you enjoyed it and get involved. What do I mean by that? I don't really know. I'm running out of ideas of what to say here. Basically, watch my shitty videos, subscribe to my shitty channel, and if you want, come and find me on Instagram where I'm at Dave Musson and let me know how shitty my shitty videos and shitty channel are. Okay, sound good? Cool. Next up, the kids are alright, but the weird, menacing, threatening government agency that has kidnapped them definitely isn't.